Hello, and welcome to the Coachwork Career Fair. This presentation will be about creating an effective resume, as well as LinkedIn basics. My name is James Pak, and I will be your presenter for today. A little bit about myself. I'm the founder of LA Career Coaching, where for the past 6 years, I've worked with college students, preparing them for internships and jobs after college. Previous to starting my company, I worked for over 10 years in the corporate world, 5 years in investment banking and 5 years in buy-side equity research. I've not only interviewed for, but have interviewed a lot of candidates for extremely competitive jobs. And I have a bachelor's degree in finance from Boston College and an MBA from Columbia Business School. So the first part is about creating an effective resume. And some resume basics. The resume is your marketing document. If you think about the job search process, it's a sales process, and your resume is your key marketing document. And in that document, you have to quickly show to the reader why you are the best person for that particular position. The goal of the resume is to get an interview, so then you can communicate directly to the company why you are the best fit for that position. And two important attributes about the resume: one is content, and the second is formatting. With regards to content, your resume needs to quickly hook the reader. You need to grab the recruiter's attention. And so what are some hooks? Well, if you're a current college student and you have a high GPA, you want to put that down, particularly if it's above 3.0, but the higher the better. Any relevant hard skills that are necessary for the job, you should put down. And if you have any certifications in those, that's even better. Any relevant experiences, such as prior internships, or even relevant projects that you've done in class or through extracurricular clubs, you would want to list those. And any other experiences that can demonstrate desired soft skills, such as teamwork, collaboration, leadership, or attention to detail. And another point of emphasis, and if there's one thing to take away from this presentation, the one thing you want to really do to make your resume more effective is, whenever possible, demonstrate accomplishments and not just responsibilities. Ideally, you want to show through your prior experiences specific accomplishments with quantifiable results. Google recommends to their applicants the suggested XYZ formula. I accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. Now, you don't need to use that formula for all the jobs you apply to, but it just goes to show that employers really want to see your impact, the accomplishments you've made, not just what you've done. Another important point when it comes to content: you want to make sure that your resume is applicant tracking system friendly. And if you're unaware of what an ATS is, it's a computer software that many companies use. And one of the functions of the ATS is it will screen resumes and will look for keywords that are relevant to the position and check to see if those keywords are on your resume. And the more keywords that are on the resume, the higher the ATS will score the resume. And so what happens a lot of times in large companies is that the recruiters will use the ATS to initially screen resumes, and the recruiter will only review the resumes that are scored highest by the ATS. So often, if you don't have a lot of the keywords that the ATS is looking for, it's very likely that a human will never get to reviewing your resume. And that's why a lot of resumes end up in that internet black hole. So you really want to make sure that on your resume, you're including important keywords. And you can find those keywords by looking at the job description and really reviewing and trying to get a sense of what are the keywords that are most important from that job description. Now, oftentimes, you can look at the job description and use your judgment to include many of the important keywords. You can also use websites such as SkillSyncer and JobScan. They provide a limited number of free resume scans, so you can get a sense of how an ATS might score your resume for a certain position. And if you feel that the service is valuable, you can sign up for one of their subscriptions. When it comes to formatting, some basic guidelines. You want to make sure that your resume is neat and simple. Typically for college students and any professionals really under, I would say, 7 years of experience, you should keep your resume to 1 page. Your margin shouldn't go lower than 1/2 inch. You want to have some white space around the edges. And the font size typically shouldn't go under 10 point. You want to make sure that people can easily read your resume. Additionally, you should use commonly used fonts such as Arial, Calibri, or Times New Roman. Sometimes if you use very exotic fonts, the ATS system may not pick it up, and it could also be more difficult for a human reader to read. And so here, I'd like to go over a few resumes. And what I'd just like to highlight is, while there are certain guidelines to follow, there's also quite a bit of flexibility and judgment when it comes to how you want to structure a resume to put your best foot forward. So for current students, you typically want to have education at or near the top because you have limited work experience. Whereas if you're a professional who has 3 years of work experience, you want to highlight your relevant work experience up on top and would typically move your education section towards the bottom since it's now less relevant. But here you can see for these resumes, which are current students, we have education, again, at or near the top. For this particular student, we wanted to include relevant courses because we felt highlighting the courses that he's taken would showcase his skill set a little bit more. We then put core qualifications as the next section because, again, we wanted to highlight the technical skills that this student had. We then thought, okay, well, what is the next strongest section after that? And so we put professional and leadership experience. Then we put projects, and then we finished with an interest section. For this next resume, you can see we added a highlight section up on top. And we did that because we wanted to put some information that didn't fit neatly into any of the other categories. Specifically, that this student who was applying for computer science positions had been studying computer science since they were in high school. And so they had quite a number of years of study and knowledge in computer science. After putting some of the highlights, we then put education. We thought, okay, what is the next then strongest aspect of this person's background? We then added some projects. We put in some relevant experiences, and then we put technical skills on the bottom for this particular resume. So again, you can see that there's a lot of flexibility and judgment when it comes to how you want to structure your resume. In this particular resume, one thing I'd like to highlight is this person was looking for social media positions. And so I had the student take some certification classes on lynda.com. And by doing that, we could add that in the education section and include a lot of the keywords that were necessary for the positions that he was applying for, particularly social media, Facebook marketing, content marketing, etc. And then from there, we put some work experiences, which some of them were a little relevant, some of them not so much. And then organizations and skills and interests. And here, this is a resume that was more for a creative position. And so it's a little bit more visual. But again, in terms of content, you can see that you want to put the strongest points up on top. So she put her internship experience up on top, as well as her education to the right. You can see skills are also highlighted and in a prominent position. And then it's filled out with certain extracurricular activities and other experiences. So now I want to go a little bit more in depth in analyzing a resume. And so we're going to look at this case study. And here, the student was a senior at UC Irvine, and he was seeking a data analyst position in the healthcare industry. He did not really have any data analyst experience before and had an internship in the healthcare industry, but not related to data analysis. So when thinking about constructing a resume, you have to really think about, okay, well, again, what is it that the companies are looking for when they're trying to hire somebody as a data analyst in healthcare? And so you can look at a lot of job descriptions to see what are the relevant skills. So some of the relevant hard skills include Excel, SQL, SPSS, and then certain soft skills that are commonly listed are communication skills, presentation skills, ability to work in a team, attention to detail, and the ability to think analytically. So here was the student's resume before, and it wasn't bad. It was fairly well laid out, but there were opportunities to make this resume more effective. And we're going to go into that a little bit more in depth. And here you can see the after. The highlighted parts just show how we tried to really strengthen the resume to make it more impactful, to really hook anybody who is going to review this resume. And so if we start with the education section, if you look at the before section, while he lists the fact that he goes to UC Irvine and that he went to Cerritos High School, there was really nothing here to hook me as to why I should choose him over any other college student. And so after speaking with him some more, I learned that his major GPA was actually quite high. And initially, he didn't want to put his cumulative GPA because he felt it wasn't that high. A 3.2 is not going to be a major hook, but what is a good hook and what will catch somebody's attention is the fact that his major GPA was a 3.8. And so if you have something like that, maybe your cumulative GPA is not that high, but your major GPA is quite high, you might want to just put your major GPA, or you could put both. In addition to that, we put the fact that he won multiple Dean's Honor List awards. And then we added some additional education. I had the student take some courses, some online courses in certain skills that were required. Again, so we saw what were the skills that companies want, and then I put him on a program to learn those skills through various online courses such as Coursera, as well as LinkedIn Learning. And through that, we were able then to put some important keywords to show that, hey, he had the skills that were necessary to come in and contribute initially as an intern doing data analysis. In terms of work experience, so this was the internship where he worked in the healthcare space, but not necessarily as a data analyst. And one thing I would say here is if you look at the before section, there are too many bullet points. And I think if you have more than typically 4 or 5 bullet points, it starts to lose its effectiveness. Once I start seeing 6 or 7, I kind of forget what I read after the first 2 or 3. So I think try to limit your bullet points to maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5. but I think going more than 5 is probably a little too much. And the other thing I'd like to highlight is he does have one accomplishment that he lists. He created this internship program as the coordinator and headed some of the talent acquisition process. But a lot of the other bullet points, again, are just talking about what he did and not necessarily what he accomplished. So when revising the bullet points, we want it to be a little bit more descriptive and not only show, okay, this is what I did, but try to really highlight whenever possible what were the accomplishments as a result of his work. And so if you look at the after section, particularly in the second bullet point, you can see, okay, we wanted to highlight that he identified and corrected various administrative errors that were on the company's record. So that shows attention to detail. And because of his attention to detail, the facility passed every inspection from the California government departments, excuse me. So if I am a hiring manager and I'm looking for somebody who's attentive to detail, then this is some evidence that would persuade me that, okay, this person has shown through prior experiences his attention to detail. Again, with the third bullet point, we wanted to be a little bit more descriptive about him creating this internship program under the supervision of the company leaders. And the result of his efforts was the establishment of 3 successful internship positions for the following summer. Now, if we take a look at it, another of his work experiences. So here, when I first saw this Apple One experience, I wasn't really sure whether or not to keep it in because there was really nothing relevant about this when it came to either healthcare or data analysis. But after speaking with the student, the one thing that really hooked me about this experience was that the student originally was assigned on this project as for 2 weeks. He was assigned by the client to do a 2-week project. And because of his good performance, the client actually extended the contract to 5 months. And even though this isn't directly relevant to healthcare or data analysis, this shows an example of the student's history of high performance. And so we want to showcase that type of accomplishment because that will show an employer or persuade an employer that, okay, this is a person who has had a track record of high success, and it's very likely that the attributes that led to that success will carry over to the new position. If he didn't have this accomplishment, I probably would have recommended him deleting this and looking to add something that would be a little bit more persuasive in terms of why he would be good for the positions he was applying for. And under leadership and activities, again, even though there's nothing here that is directly relevant to healthcare or data analysis, this can help showcase some soft skills that, again, are very important. So here we wanted to highlight through his extracurricular activity at UC Irvine, his ability to collaborate with different people and from different schools and work together to make a significant impact by creating this event, which resulted in 5,000 sandwiches made and distributed to the homeless. And then I also wanted to put in his varsity co-captain of his tennis team. Normally, I don't like putting in high school experiences, but this was a good example showing leadership, and I thought this would be helpful to show this side of himself. So here you can see how we made the resume more impactful. And then you can see how we changed the resume after 6 months. And the biggest changes were that during that 6-month period, he got 2 relevant internships. And so we definitely wanted to include those because those are, of course, very helpful when it comes to convincing an employer why he's a good candidate for a position. And we took out some of those extracurricular activities that were now less relevant, and we wanted to highlight the important work experiences. And so you can see here how we modified the resume. And in these work experiences, we wanted to, again, try to include the relevant keywords. So we put in keywords such as analyzing, SPSS, drafting reports, utilizing Microsoft Excel. We wanted to show in the second experience how he was one of 2 undergraduate researchers selected from 40 applicants, and he performed analysis of public health legislation. And so by making his resume more effective, he was able then to get those 2 internships, which then led to his desired goal of getting a job before graduating college. He was able to obtain a job as a data analyst professional in the healthcare industry. And then as a result of his previous education and his work experience, he subsequently was admitted to the Johns Hopkins Masters of Applied Science in Spatial Analysis for Public Health. Now I'd like to cover some LinkedIn basics. And for those of you who are unaware of LinkedIn, think of it as Facebook for business. It is a very useful tool to network professionally. And just as an aside, networking is very important. It's something that I learned a little bit late in my career. So the earlier you understand and appreciate the importance of networking and just building connections, the better off you will be with regards to your career. And so LinkedIn is a very useful tool to do networking online. And I would encourage you to do networking through LinkedIn, as well as, of course, networking offline through in-person events and connecting with as many people as you can, because those connections will help you down the road in terms of possible job opportunities or just gathering information. And you should as well try to be as helpful to your network whenever you can. LinkedIn is also great because you can really do a lot of career research on LinkedIn, and I will show you some useful ways you can use it to gather some career information. Just some key takeaways. I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to please sign up and fill out your profile. You can take a lot of information from your resume and include it into your profile. Try to make as many connections as you can, and having more connections allows you to see more profiles, and you'll see why that is beneficial in a minute. And learn how to use the search functions to gather information, because if you know how to use LinkedIn effectively, you can gather a lot of career intelligence, as well as find ways to network with industry professionals, and that will help you, again, with your career in the future. So here you can see my LinkedIn page, and so this is pretty much a standard profile. You have your picture, your name, title, and then as you scroll down, you can add some information about who you are. Some other sections include experience. So there's an opportunity to list a lot of your experiences here. And if you think about it, this allows you to put in more information than you would have when you're trying to limit yourself on a one-page resume. So if you need it, you can put in some more information that maybe you would not put in on your resume due to space constraints. Here we highlight, again, education. You can put in some of your volunteer experience if you have some. If some contacts want to endorse you for various skills, they can endorse you here, or you can also take a skill quiz. And over time, if you can get recommendations through your bosses or coworkers, that's also really powerful. It just goes to show somebody who's reviewing your profile what others think about you. And then you can put in some additional information here about any interests you may have. You can sign up for various groups, or if you want to follow certain people, you can do that as well. Now, one very useful tool is the alumni function on LinkedIn. And so let's say you go to UC Irvine. I will type in UC Irvine here and we'll click on the school. And you can see here that for UC Irvine, there are over 178,000 alumni, but that includes current students, that have a LinkedIn profile. So there's quite a lot of people on this platform from UC Irvine. And so let's say you go to UC Irvine and you want to see, okay, well, who are the other people who are also who have also attended UC Irvine or are attending UC Irvine and what they're doing. And so you can see here that, well, of the 178,859 alumni, now a lot of people go work at Google, a lot of people work at Amazon, Northrop. So these are some of the top employers that employ students, alumni from UC Irvine. And you can limit it also by geographic region. So let's say I'm looking specifically to move to San Francisco, and I want to see what UC Irvine alumni who are living in San Francisco are doing. So I click on the San Francisco tab, and I can see here, okay, of the 19,507 alum who are in San Francisco, 456 work at Google, 313 in Apple, 250 in Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. I can also filter by what they studied. So if I was an economics major and I wanted to just see, okay, what are economics alumni who are in San Francisco, what are they doing? I can see here, well, 18 work at Google, 15 at Facebook, 12 at Wells Fargo, 10 at Salesforce. And then if I scroll down, I can also start to look at profiles and see, okay, individual people. And I can see, well, this person is a 94 economics grad. And so I could look at the person's profile and see, she works at Capital Group and she's been working there for 16 years. Prior to that, she was working at another financial services firm. And prior to that, she was working at another financial services firm. So you can see she graduated UC Irvine with a Bachelor of Science in Economics in 1994. And so if you were ever interested in possibly working at Capital Group or trying to gather information about the financial services industry, and you are a UCI alum, now you can try to find ways to maybe reach out to Anne-Marie, and having that common connection of UC Irvine would increase the chances that she would actually want to talk to you. And so you could then try to set up some informational interviewing. And that's something you should look into if you don't know much about informational interviewing. So it's a very useful tool, this alumni function. You can also look for more recent alumni. Now, to start year and end year are not exactly accurate filters, but it gives you a rough proxy. So let's say I want to look at people who are a little bit more recent, so maybe 2016 to 2020. You will then get 148 alum who are more recent alum who are in San Francisco and who majored in economics. And you can then see, okay, where are they working? And you can see certain profiles. So if you don't have a lot of connections, what ends up happening is you will see LinkedIn member instead of the name. and you can't click on the person's profile to see what they've done. So the more connections you have, the more profiles that open up for you to take a look and possibly see how they got to where they got to, and maybe look to contact them if you're interested in speaking with them. And another great utility of LinkedIn is you don't have to just look at your own school, but let's say you want to move to Seattle and you know that the University of Washington is the flagship school in the Seattle area. So you can type in University of Washington and you want to find the school. Let's see if we can find it here. I see company, but I'd like to see school. So you can do search all results. Maybe look here under schools. So we click on this. We can then see alumni. And we can see, okay, people who have attended school and in the flagship school of Seattle, Washington, or the Washington area, what are students doing? And again, you can filter by geography, by what they studied, and then you can also see what are people skilled at, and maybe if you have any connections. So it's, again, just a very useful function. It's something that I use quite often when I work with my students in trying to find information. And I would highly recommend that you take advantage of what LinkedIn has to offer. So that wraps up my presentation for today. I hope you found this to be useful, and I wish you the best of luck as you connect and interview with companies for your new position. Thank you.